Red Plenty is set in the most hopeful bit of Soviet history, the bit when people really do think that the radiant future of communist abundance may be coming. Stalin is gone, the purges are over, and disappointment has not yet set in. It's the thaw, and there's some cultural freedoms in here which have something to do with the sense of optimism, but most of all it's got to do with the way that Soviet citizens are palpably richer, rich enough that they are starting to believe Mr. Khrushchev when he tells them that by 1980 they will be the richest people in the world, far richer than Americans. The Soviet Union successfully industrialized in the sense of doing all the things that capitalism was doing in the 1930s. It had its steel, and it had its coal, and it had its electricity. But to get to where they would be richer than the Americans, they needed a whole other industrial revolution, things like computers and plastics and so on. And they also needed to stop producing heavy things in bulk and to start boxing clever and producing neat little valuable things where they were needed. They had the brain power, and the Soviet Union was astonishingly well endowed by the 1950s in people with PhDs in the sciences. And they gave it a good go. But there turn out to be problems with trying to come up with a software solution to a hardware difficulty. The Soviet hardware had been laid down under Stalin in the 1930s. It was very difficult to alter, and it turned out that running a new program for sophisticated wealth on it was not as easy as all that. I've got some people at the top of Soviet politics, Khrushchev himself and Kosygin, one of his wily successors, and I've got some real people from the world of Soviet mathematics, including most of all Leonid Vitalyevich Kantorovich, the only Soviet citizen ever to win a Nobel Prize for economics, who produced the piece of genius which they pinned their hopes on. But around them, in various different little bits of Soviet living, I've got a cast of minor politicians and scientists and people just trying to get by one way and another. I wanted to show something which doesn't usually come into our kind of tragic sense of Soviet history. The tragedy is real, but we know about it more than Soviet citizens at the time did, unless they'd had direct personal experience. And the tragedy looms so large in our minds that it's difficult for us to engage with the other things people felt about the Soviet Union, that here was a version of modern life which might be brutal at times, but was on the up, was heading towards the sunlit uplands of human history as well, and was giving capitalism a run for its money. I'd thought this was going to be a piece of non-fiction, and then I realised that it wasn't just about ideas. It was about ideas in lives. It was about the effects of a big piece of hope passing through the texture of people's real private lives. So I knew I needed some kind of ingenious compromise between fiction and non-fiction there, because it's still about the ideas. The ideas haven't gone away, but I needed experience that feels like experience as you read it. So I put together this kind of temporary house, probably in Soviet concrete, on the border between fiction and non-fiction, where I hope you can have the benefits and satisfactions of reading a novel, as well as the structure of a piece of history. It was very important to me to capture as much as possible as the ordinary texture of Soviet living. So yeah, it's a book which is full of smells and tastes and descriptions of clothes and weather, and just descriptions of the way that really old snow looks when the spring comes.